we're going to bring on our first guest, and she is not a stranger to Black Authors Matter TV. She actually won the Black Authors Matter TV award for best interview it was this year, I think this year. She won in historical fiction. So she's back with a new book. She has her award there. And we welcome Angela Jackson Brown back to Black Authors Matter TV. Welcome.
Hello, congratulations, Gwen, on the new book.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you. It's been a long time coming. So, you know.
Hey, Dr. Rhonda, how you doing?
Yeah, I can't hear Rhonda at all. And Angela, your voice is like coming in and out.
Oh, no.
Yeah. Can you hear her, Rhonda? But I can't hear Rhonda, but it's kind of low. The volume is low.
Oh, no. Well, do you hear me okay now?
Yes.
Okay.
That's much better. Okay.
Okay,
Well, do you
hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah, now we can.
Okay, awesome. So yeah, we both having audio issues, but we got them fixed really quickly.
Yes. Okay. So, and technology, you just never know. So, Angela, you have your new book out. It came out last Tuesday, and it's called Homeward, and you have a copy of it there. You see, you have tabs in your book too. So now what do your tabs represent?
Well, I've been doing readings at different events, and I get bored easily reading the same thing over and over. So okay. I have about 4 or 5 different spots in the book that I'll just turn to wherever I happen to be, and whatever it lands on, that's what I read.
That's a good idea. Now my tabs this is the proof. So I always go through reading cover to cover. When I get my proof, I read it cover to cover because there's always something you miss. And so these tabs are things that got missed before I pulled the trigger on it. So I corrected them before I pulled the trigger on the book. So, but it's good to know about that for readings. I haven't done any readings yet, but I think I might have some in my future.
Absolutely. You need to come to Bloomington, Indiana, and let me spoil you, and you can do a reading here in town.
Well, I'm available on Zoom everywhere worldwide. That's going to be my go-to thing right now. And plus, it's cold up there. I don't have the clothes to.
It is cold in Indiana. I've been to Indiana.
Seriously cold.
That weather is not nice to you.
You have to have multiple layers of stuff. And see, in Texas, especially the part where I live, some parts of Texas, it does get cold and it does get snow. We have really all of the seasons because the state is so big. So we have mountains, we have desert, we have the Gulf, we have the whole shebang. But in Houston, it's hot. So like right now, we're actually having a cold front. That's what they call it. And it was 72 today.
Bless your heart.
That's our cold front for October. Normally it's 80 and it's going to be 80 in a few days. So that's our cold front for October.
Oh my goodness.
So tell us about Homeward and what time period, because I know you do historical, what time period and what's the setting, and just give us a lay of the land in terms of the plot.
Absolutely. So Homeward sort of picks up when stars rain down. It picks up or doesn't pick off where it left off, but it picks up with that same family. So when stars rain down was about my character Opal when she was a teenager, and this is about her daughter from 1962 to 1964, really focusing on the year 1963. So Opal's daughter, Rose, returns to Parsons, Georgia, because she gets pregnant with another man's baby while her husband's away in Vietnam. And she doesn't want to stay in Mississippi with him. So she goes back home thinking she can sort of just put her head in the sand and avoid everything. but life keeps lifing, and she can't avoid what she's dealt with. So there's that part of the story. But really the major part of the story is that Rose decides, along with her sister and the rest of her family, to become involved in the civil rights movement. So I have Rose and her sister become volunteers with the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee in Atlanta. Her sister is a student at Spelman, and you get to see them interact with all of these historical characters like John Lewis, Dr. King, Reverend Shuttlesworth. I mean, everybody that you can imagine that was involved in the movement. They are young people in this book, and you get to see what life was like really working with an organization like SNCC for these young people, because without them, without the vision of the youth, we would not have had the civil rights movement as we know it.
Well, that's pretty cool that you were actually able to kind of relive all of that. And this, it's almost like an homage to the history that got us where we are today.
Absolutely, because I really didn't plan it when I was writing the book, but the book came out this year, 60 years after so many of the historical events that are mentioned in the book, like the assassination of Medgar Evers, the March on Washington, the bombing of 16th Street Baptist Church, the assassination of President Kennedy. All of those happened within a 7-month time period. And when I was writing the book, I wasn't necessarily planning for it to come out on the 60th anniversary year, but it just so happened that it did. And it just sort of shows us that, history is still living among us, the idea that happened just 60 years ago.
That puts it into perspective, because I never really thought about all of that happening within a 7-month period. And I just imagine the people who lived during that time to turn on the news or to hear something and say, oh no, not him too, or not her too. And it all happened just so close to each other. I mean, that's really something to think about. We know that this happened and we appreciate the history, but to put it in that type of perspective it's kind of breathtaking.
Oh, it absolutely is. I mean, every time I would look up one event, I would think, no, that couldn't have happened in 63. Let me fact check myself, because there's just no way all of this couldn't have happened. At one time, I said to someone, if I had made this up, my editor probably would have said to me, there's no way, no one would believe that. No one would believe that this country could have gone through that much in such a short period of time. But it just shows the resilience of our seniors, who are now seniors, who lived through that and survived it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think a couple of other things may have happened in 63 too. One of the reasons that I went off camera was because I wanted to get my book to show you that I read the When Stars Rain Down. But the when the Goodman, Cheney, and Schwerner, when they were killed, I think that may have been 1963, when they were shot and then their bodies were buried, and then they were it was like 3 weeks later they were in Mississippi trying to register people to vote. That might have been 63, I think it was. And then when was the Edmund Pettus Bridge, when the Bloody Sunday, was that 63?
That wasn't 63. That was later on, because John Lewis only took over as the head of SNCC in the summer of 63, because he was one of the organizers for the March on Washington. So now they were doing work in Selma, but the actual march didn't happen until later. And in 1964 was when Goodman, Cheney.
Okay, so it was the following year.
The following year. So again, just more.
But it was a lot back to
on top of another.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes. Okay. Well, who did you have a hand in the cover, the cover design, or did the publisher, your publisher, come up with that?
I didn't have a hand at all. Normally I'm very vocal about the cover. I have specific ideas, but I really just said to them, just come up with a good cover. I was so shocked, because normally I'm always tweaking. I'm always saying, oh, well, I don't like that, or I don't like this. when I saw the cover, I said, that's it. We don't need to do anything different. So I always try to say his name, Derek Thornton. Derek, he put his foot in this, as my folks down in Alabama used to say. He knew, he figured me out, and he knew exactly what my vision was. So I just absolutely adore the work he did on this cover.
That's wonderful. I mean, it's good when you have somebody who recognizes your vision.
Exactly.
It happen.
Yeah, I'm wondering, I don't think I've ever asked anyone this on the show, but I'm curious, and I'm sure the audience might want to know too. The whole process of getting your book cover done through a major publisher, does the artist have to read the book? Do they have just like the highlights of the book? Do you know how that works?
I can't say specifically if Derek read the book, but before he started designing the cover, I sent a very detailed outline that explained exactly what was taking place in the book.
Okay.
He also wanted to know, like, what were some iconic images that came to mind. So carrying on from When Stars Rain Down was the peach orchard that the family lived close to. And obviously I said, you know, any images related to the civil rights movement would be amazing. But that was about as deep as I went. Oh, and I also wanted a silhouette again, because every book has had kind of a silhouette of a woman's head on it in some form or fashion. So
Okay.
I thought it might thematically look good to kind of keep with that similar theme. But other than that, I didn't really give him anything to go by. He just came up with this cover.
Well, he must have at least looked at your synopsis, like because when you have a major publisher, a lot of times you don't have a lot of say into how the cover is going to look. They, you know, the publisher hires the cover designer, and they see the title. They may look at the back of the book and they come up with something, and sometimes it may not always reflect what you had in mind. So you were very fortunate to have somebody who recognized your vision.
Yeah, I will say this. I can't speak for HarperCollins, the mothership, but I can say for Harper Muse, the imprint, they always listen to their authors. They really want our input. They want to make sure that we're happy with the cover, we're happy with the title, because, you know, one thing I've been told by several of them, which is, if you're not happy with the cover, or if you're not happy with the title, you're not going to promote the book with the same level of intensity as you would if everything about it is your vision. So they really strive to make sure that at the end of the day that we're pleased with what our name is on.
Well, that's wonderful. That's actually very good.
Yes.
Well, you have a lot of people in the comments who are congratulating you on your book. So that's a great thing. And so it looks like the book is well received.
Thank you, everyone. I appreciate it. I am slowly but surely developing a loyal following. I have so much and so many people to thank, but starting with all of you, because before I was even a blip on anyone's radar, you know, you and Gwen, you know, just championed my work. And I can't say thank you enough, because there's just not enough advocates for us out there. So whenever you all say, come, I'm right here, wherever y'all need me to be, I want to be there, because y'all were there for me when I didn't have that kind of support initially.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Well, you're welcome. You know, we love what we do. So we
Absolutely.
are, and we've been very gratified by the reception that we've gotten over the years we've had the show, and the fact that when people have a book, they want to be on the show. Like early, when they first get the book released, they want to be on. They request to be on the show many times. A lot of times when I see the upcoming book release dates, I'll reach out, which is what I did with this book. If I see, okay, it's coming out here, and we normally are booked up a month in advance, so I try to reach out in a timely fashion so we can we like to be like one of the first interviews.
Well, I'm happy I'm happy for that to always be the case. Anytime you want me to come back.
All
Okay.
right, we're gonna put you to that.
Absolutely.
So did you have a two book arrangement with When Stars Rain Down and Homeward, or did the Homeward book come later after the success of When Stars Rain Down?
So when I signed with HarperCollins, I signed a 2-book deal that was for When Stars Rain Down and The Light Always Breaks. And then
Okay.
I signed another 2-book deal with them for Homeward and another book that's coming out the end of next year. So we just sort of we've been signing 2 books at a time.
Well, that's
But you're cranking
wonderful.
out those ideas though.
You know, we have to stay hungry and we have to stay working. So, you know, I feel like this is the time for me to build a following, and I don't want my readers waiting years upon years for the next book. So whatever I have to do to get a book in their hand every year or every other year, that's the goal.
Yeah, I need to add that to my goal list. It took me 5 years to write the Genesis Files, and then there was 5 years, and then it took me 5 years to write Exodus from Treachery. So it's 10 years between the 2 books. But I did redo the cover for the Genesis Files so they could complement each other, and so they could be companions. But and fortunately, in the first book, the technology was forward, because I self-published it. Like, the stuff that was in the book was timely, so it still works, even though it's been a few years, but it still works from a technology standpoint, because you know the technology changes so much. When you mention something in a book, that's the thing about historical, it's fixed in time. Whatever happened, it's already back there. So it's just a matter of bringing a compelling storyline and characters to bring that time period back to life.
Absolutely. Yeah. I admire what you contemporary writers do. I think I need at least a decade or more for me to process everything. Someone asked me if I thought I might write about Black Lives Matter and what's happening with it. I said, well, maybe 40 years from now. I said, I'll be a little old 90-some-year-old woman trying to write about the 2020s.
Well, a lot of people have written books that, not so much Black Lives Matter, but George Floyd and that whole time period. A lot of books were written during that time, and a lot of books reflect or refer back to that time in the book. So, and because there's normally a 2-year span between, if you're with a major publisher, between the time you sign and the time the book comes out, a lot of the books that have come out in this past year have referred to that. I've been reading them, and it's in there. Books for children, teens, and adults.
Definitely necessary work and important work. And I'm glad we have authors who are doing that.
Yeah, that is very, very important. So what inspired, now which was your very first book with a with the main publisher?
My very first book was Drinking from a Bitter Cup. I published that with a small publishing house in Utah, Widow Publishing, and it was a learning experience. They did as much as they could do, but they were a very small imprint. They didn't have the backing to be able to support me in terms of marketing, so I had to do all of that myself. But I learned a lot from the experience, so I would take nothing for it. And they still have that book in print, so I have to thank them. That book is still out there. It's like the little engine that could. Every now and then I'll get a little royalty check. I said, well, look at you drinking from a bitter cup. You still out here just trying to get mama some money.
Great.
Wrong with that? Well, that's a good thing if your first book is still selling, because I mean that's not an easy feat.
It's not. I know of a lot of people who unfortunately their books have gone out of print. So
Right.
I think a large part of it too has to do with just the timing. You know, just when I thought maybe that book didn't have any more life, When Stars Rain Down came out. And so people would ask, okay, well, what else have you written? Because they were wanting more work. So I was able to just sort of point them in that direction. And Widow made sure that they kept that book in the forefront. So kudos to them.
Oh, okay. Well, great. Now, is that historical fiction as well?
Well, you know, I guess some readers, I mean, some people might call it, it's set in the 1970s. So interestingly enough, 1970s, that's historical.
Yeah, that's considered historical
That's
now.
historical. It hurts my feelings to think of it as I feel like old Model T Ford or something. I'm like, well, I was born in 68. Y'all try to tell me I'm an antique.
Well,
So,
it's 50
No,
years.
my daughter has this thing she likes to say now. She says that she was born in the late 1900s. It's in 1999. She was born in the late 1900s.
I love that. I'm gonna have to tell my
That is
son.
hilarious.
That's cute. That's cute. But no, Drinking from a Bitter Cup was in the 1970s. I touch on the Vietnam War a little bit, but
Okay.
for the most part, it's part autobiographical and more. It's just kind of focused on the story and not the time period.
Okay. Well, Angela, thank you so much for being a guest on the show. And show your cover one more time.
Absolutely. There you go, everyone.
Homeward by
Homeward.
Angela Jackson Brown.
Congratulations. 1 week, you already have some great reviews, so you are doing something right, and I am going to be reading your book very soon.
Thank you. Thank you. And again, congratulations, Gwen. I'm so excited. My copy of your book is on its way. I can't wait to dig into it.
Oh, okay. Wonderful. Wonderful. All right. Well, thank you again, and we'll see you when you do your next book. We'll have you back on.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Take care.
Okay. You're welcome.
Bye.